Hello, my name is William Jones, and I'm a secondary education major at John Tyler Community College, duly enrolled at Virginia Commonwealth University. I am a member of John Tyler's Honor and Distinction, which is the Black Student Alliance, a participant in the VCU Pathways program, as well as a Mellon Research Fellow. I've worked as a behavioral aide, a special education instructor, and I'm currently a virtual learning facilitator. I've never been really good at researching and things like that, so this has been one of my greatest endeavors. This undertaking has really helped me grow in that arena as I love the process of learning. And education is something that I'm very passionate about. I see the harsh realities of virtual learning on a daily basis at work, and it really made me think about all the children that I've worked with and how much they struggled in doing in-person learning and actually in the school building, and just how much that has really increased tenfold during this pandemic. During this research project, I had the opportunity to speak with a few individuals about their experiences. The following interviews are with Charles Williams, who is a licensed and practicing behavioral analyst, Taylor Fletcher, who is the Director of Special Education for Virginia School District, and Cortez Dixon, who is a first-year special education teacher. Now, these are edited for time constraints, but I feel like this is somewhat of a part one of more to come. So, without further ado, I present Special Education in a Virtual World. This is Mr. Charles Williams. All right, good morning. I'm here with Mr. Charles Williams. If you can just go ahead and let people know, I guess kind of qualify yourself, let people know your experience and your title and things like that.
All right. Like you said, my name is Charles Williams. I'm currently a practicing licensed behavior analysis, which means I got my LBA and also I'm a board certified behavior analysis, BCBA. Got my master's in curriculum and design from Arizona State, bachelor's in psychology from Virginia Tech. Those two things were very far apart in my career development. Didn't decide to go back for the master's for a while. I've done so many different things in the field. Right out of college, I worked at an adult day support program, doing vocational training. So I learned how to, teach and work with adults. I've done case management. We lived in New York for a while, and I did a lot of case management and service coordination up there. When we moved back to Virginia, I worked as a classroom para for a little bit at Highland Springs High School.
Okay.
And that's when during that time, I kind of discovered behavior analysis and the ability to kind of go in home and work one-on-one with kids who have communication deficits and social skill deficits mostly. A lot of the kids have autism, but that's not a qualification. The general qualification is those communication deficits. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm a supervisor, so I'm in the homes less, but I'm writing the plans and kind of teaching the people who work under me to kind of implement the plans in the home.
Okay.
But it's been quite a ride. Like I said, I've done a lot. Well, I was just thinking and reminded me of one family I work with. Great family, great kids. And the mom was frustrated because the kid wouldn't sit down and attend. She's 6, just turned 6. And he wouldn't do the virtual school thing. Like he would just be like, no, like I'm just gonna get up. And she was so worried about what this meant when he went back to school. Like, can he focus? Can he do this? And I had to explain to her, he's at home. So whatever mentality you want him to have about being at school, his environment is not telling him he's at school. He's sitting in his living room.
Right.
And so his Xbox is right there. The refrigerator is right there. He can't pretend he's at school. And that's what they're kind of asking these kids to do is while you're sitting at the computer, behave as if you were at school. And it's just not possible because they're not at school.
Right.
You know?
And then with them being with their actual parent, which is why I think that the company I work for, it's a bit revolutionary, honestly. And I think that, with them being with their parent or their parent trying to be their teacher, they don't look at their parent like that,
Nope.
Last year, and actually this was honestly right before things went south, I worked in an elementary school, and I remember the last day, we walked the kid out to his parents, and the teacher in the classroom told his parents, All right, well, I'll see y'all whenever things get better, and which at that time they'd said maybe 2-3 weeks, which
Right,
all
right.
that's not true,
Yeah.
but and then she told them, good luck, and the parents were kind of like, good luck, we don't know it, and then maybe a week or so later, his father messaged me on Facebook and was like, I see what you mean, like.
Good luck.
It's a different, not that they don't respect their parents, but it's a different
It's
level.
different.
Right.
It's
Like
just different.
I don't view you as that person. Your child is a burden to you, but it's something that's hard to deal with,
Yeah.
especially still having to deal with your life on a day-to-day basis and or multiple children.
Mm-hmm.
You're not necessarily, and which not, I don't want it to sound bad, but you don't necessarily have the time or the will to
It's
deal with that.
capacity, right? Like we're human. We only got so much capacity. We living through a pandemic. People's jobs are losing hours or losing their whole job. You might have multiple children. You got if I can come and say, well, what if he could do this by himself? Would that make things easier? Then let's do that.
Right.
Let's do that.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that because the kid needs to learn the skill anyway. Come to the parents with questions first. Like, I'm here to serve you.
Mhm.
Then you get buy-in right away because parents don't get that. And to be honest, like this doesn't even break down across socioeconomics or racial lines because I work. Everybody got autism, and it don't discriminate at all. So I've been in some of the richest, nicest neighborhoods in Richmond and in the projects. Like it's just that's what it is. But all across the board, when you go to a parent and say, "What do you think needs to be going on?" They all stunned, like, "Oh, you asking me?"
Mhm.
You either get, well, you the expert, you tell me, or you get, no one's ever asked me that before. And when I get you the expert tell me, I say, no, you the expert, this is your child. I can help you with tools to get him where he needs to go or she where she needs to go, but you know what they need way more than I do. This is your kid.
Right.
And I think that's the key to the buy-in. And if you were in a school setting, again, it's resources and time, but if you were able to just before that first parent teacher conference in the 9 weeks, reach out to a parent and say, hey, what do you think your kid is a little bit, is a little bit weak in, a little bit strong in? I'll pay attention to that. You think they need a little bit of extra help with this, a little bit extra help with that. I'll watch out for it. So you just let me know where you're coming from because so much of education is us as educators dictating to families like, this is what your kid need to know.
Mm-hmm.
We got standards of learning. We got all kinds of assessment mechanisms. We got all kinds of tools to tell you what by X age kid needs to know why, as opposed to saying, hey, what do you see? You there with them every day. Like, what
Right.
can't they do?
Right.
Like, what do you want them? What would make you happy? And I had that conversation. I just had a new client. Kid needs to be toilet trained. Kid needs to learn how to eat solid foods because he didn't have to for a while because he had a trach tube, so he'd been eating blended food. But now he just kind of got used to it, and it's like I ain't chewing. And he needs a better communication system. And mom was like, "What should we do first?" And I said, "Whatever's gonna make your life the easiest first." That's three huge things. Like those are all big. I can't rank those for you.
Right.
I can ask you like, what do you need to? What's gonna make your day to day easier first? We're gonna tackle them all. But
Right.
where we start is up to you. And she was like, huh. She had to think about it. I was like, well, think about your day to day. And she was like, bathroom. I was like, all right, then let's go. Let's write this toilet protocol and get this toilet training done.
Right.
And we'll move to the other stuff after that. But I think the way to get back to your question is to get buy-in from them by putting them in a position of power. Like this is your show. You the mom, you the dad, you know.
Yeah. Right. Right. That makes sense. Because not that your child is a burden to you, but it's something that's hard to deal with,
Yeah.
especially still having to deal with your life on a day-to-day basis and or multiple children.
Mm-hmm.
You're not necessarily, and which not I don't want it to sound bad, but you don't necessarily have the time or the will to
It's
deal with that.
capacity, right? Like we're human. We only got so much capacity. We living through a pandemic. People's jobs are losing hours or losing their whole job. You might have multiple children. You got if I can come and say, well, what if he could do this by himself? Would that make things easier? Then let's do that.
Right.
Let's do that.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that because the kid needs to learn the skill anyway.
Right. At some point.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Um, I've done DSP work as well, and one of the clients that I worked with, obsessive compulsive disorder, and like real obsessive compulsive, not
Yeah.
people say all the time, "Oh, I'm OCD." No,
Like no, this is legit.
right, yeah, like
Yeah.
legit, right? Like you have to like take the soap out of the bathroom and monitor it because he will, wash his hands for hours
Yeah.
at a time.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the my coworkers was very nonchalant, about everything with him, and
Mhm.
I guess it kind of made me uncomfortable. But with me just breaking into the field within the past, year and a half or two, I didn't want to. I didn't want to look at it like what like they're wrong,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also I didn't want to, I guess, fall into bad habit either.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I'm sure that that's something that you with being a supervisor deal with on a daily, because I mean you're in people's homes and like they're trusting you basically.
Right. It's big.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. It's big. It's big because the parents are trusting you, and it's big because the kids don't know you, and
Mhm,
you have to earn their trust.
mhm.
And it's you gotta take it all seriously. You gotta respect the parents and what they want, but you also have to respect the children because they are human beings.
Mhm.
And I've had a lot of conversations with parents about certain behaviors, like my kid lines up cars, he doesn't play with them in the way that other kids play with cars. I'm like, all right, but is he having fun? Because if that's how he likes to play with those cars, I'm not I'm not really trying to teach him to do anything else, because now I'm not respecting him.
Right.
Now I'm not letting this kid be who he is. And I gotta pause. I try not to do the gender thing by saying he, but working in the autism field, so many of my kids are little boys. But it does go, he, she, whatever. I do that unconsciously because I work with so many boys. But if your kid like, or another big one, oh, he just wants to watch the same show over and over and over again, or the same 5 minutes of the same show. Okay, do he come to dinner when you ask? Do he
Right.
finish his homework when you ask? I mean, because that's a preference. Like, that's just a matter of respecting that human being. Like, that's what that kid likes to do. I don't see any, and I have the tools to teach him to do it different. I could do it. I just don't feel like I'm not respecting that person as a whole person the same way I respect a parent. I gotta respect the child too.
Right. Right. They're having a good time and not bothering nobody. Why not? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do, there's a line. You do want kids to be able to open themselves up to new experiences. You don't want them to be so closed into their interest they don't ever try anything else.
Mm.
But altering their interest is to me a slippery slope to coercion, and honestly like a bit abusive. Like, I do what I like.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like no one says to me, "You gonna watch another basketball game?" Like,
Right.
yes, I am.
Right. Yeah.
Matter of fact, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And if there's another one after this, I'm gonna watch that one too. And nobody has a problem with that. But if a kid wants to watch Thomas all day, it's like, yo, he's gonna watch another episode of Thomas. Is he okay? Yeah, he okay. He just like Thomas.
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
you know,
Or trains. Like
or trains. Yeah.
right. Right.
Yeah, like, or I had a kid that just loved the Eiffel Tower. Like, he would just turn anything to Eiffel, building Legos, Eiffel Tower, going to library books about the Eiffel Tower, on Google, Eiffel Tower. Dad was like, he just, everything he makes it about the Eiffel Tower. And I was like, okay, let's talk about everything for a second. He's on a baseball team. He does that. He finishes all his homework. He does that, right? Like, he goes to school every day. Okay, so it's not everything then. It's
Right.
just when he has free time and leisure time, he does what he wants to do.
Right.
The same way you do what you want to do. It just so happens he likes one thing. But I think it's hard, parents and teachers, it's hard for us to remember how many demands we place on kids and how little of their time they control.
Mhm.
80% of the time they're doing something somebody told them,
Right.
you know?
When they
So
do.
during that 20%, do what you want,
Right.
you know?
Right.
There's plenty of opportunities for kids to do what you want them to do.
And a lot of those things, honestly, could end up being things that, when they are older, that turn into, careers
Oh,
or
for sure.
actual
For
genuine
sure.
things. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they go branch off into something more what a neurotypical adult would look at as productive. Like they go like that's another thing, man. Kids are like you had 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, and a parent is looking at them like, okay, is this the rest of their life?
Mm-hmm.
No. Was 8 the rest of your life?
Exactly. Right. When I was a kid,
No.
I wanted to be a hockey player, an astronaut,
Right.
and a police officer.
Right.
Right. And I'm
Right.
none of those things.
You're like, no, zero. Yeah. So like but that's like I have a 10-year-old, so I get it. Like you just get bogged down because you so worried and you so want the best and you so want this kid to blossom and reach their potential. It's good to have somebody who's more objective say, hey, slow down. This is just today that they only want to eat Fruit Loops. This is just today. Like tomorrow's another day, and 2 years from now is a whole nother thing. Motivate them to do the things that they don't want to do, because that's, again, it goes back to the skill. That's the biggest skill that kids need in moving to adulthood. Can you motivate yourself to do the hard part that you don't want to do? Can you motivate when you're in school and you're in grad school? Yeah, you can motivate yourself to write the paper in your favorite class. You can motivate yourself to do the work of the stuff you like, but can you motivate yourself to do the work in that one boring prerequisite that you got to take? And how do you find it? What do you do to get yourself there? That's the biggest skill. Like, how do I go out and acquire knowledge through activity I'm not motivated to engage in?
Well, Mr. Williams, I don't want to take up your whole day. This would have been longer than I expected.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's all good information always. I like
Okay.
that. I'm here with Taylor Fletcher, a friend of mine and an educator. So here we go. So Taylor, start off by I guess kind of qualifying yourself. Telling us who you are.
Graduated from high school in 2010. I went to Virginia State University for undergrad, and I got a undergraduate degree, a Bachelor of Science in Community-Based Education. And then when I first got out of school, I was working 3 jobs at the same time, all like community-based area stuff. Then I got an offer from Chesterfield County Public Schools to be a paraprofessional. So I was a paraprofessional for 1 week at Manchester Middle, and I hated it. I hated it. And Manchester Middle is grades 7th through 9th, I believe. No, 6th through 8th. They're 6th through 8th. And I just hated it. And that first week told me, okay, secondary is not for me. By the end of the first week, I got an offer from Petersburg City Public Schools to be a special education teacher. I did not know what all it took. I only came from a background of having 2 SPED classes when I was an undergrad, but when you're young, you think about money, not so much the career. So I jumped on it real quick. I stayed in Chesterfield for a week, and then next week I was in Petersburg. Say all that to say, I stayed in Petersburg for 4 years. I taught elementary special education, inclusion only. I've never taught self-contained. In the midst of those 4 years, I did go back to Virginia Commonwealth University, and I got licensed to be a special education teacher. And then right after I got licensed, I started my master's. They had a grant through VCU to get people licensed. And so I did that. And then because I did so well in it, I was like, you know what? Let me just go get a master's in this, because like most other areas of study, to progress and make more money, a bachelor's won't do. So I was like, okay, let me go get a master's. So all in all, it took 2 years to get a master's. And in those 2 years, I did my master's while I was working at Petersburg for 4 years. And then I took a job with Prince George County Public Schools for elementary special education. And my first year that I was in Prince George was when I finished my master's. So I got my master's in December 2019. I spent 2 years at Prince George. I got great reviews, which was really nice because, I mean, as a teacher, you just feel like you're in the trenches sometimes. Like, it's the lowest of the low. Like, under me, I always told my parents, under me is the kids. Like, there are so many other people up top from me. And I used to be told from my special education coordinator, like, I think you would like this training. I think you would like this training. You have really great aspects in teaching different types of students, writing IEPs, things of that nature. And I would be like, oh, okay. So in the 6 years that I taught, I realized this is my niche. I'm good at this. Like, and it freaked me out for a little while because obviously, like I said, before I even started college, I was like, what's my niche? I don't know what I'm about to do in life. And so it's really hard sometimes to figure out what your niche in life is. But I figured out I'm a decent teacher. I can teach kids. So when I got my master's, I took different classes that prepared me more for teaching and on the actual coordinators aspect. And a coordinator, I say, they're over the SPED teachers. They run eligibilities, they train teachers, they lead different department meetings about the up and up of what's going on within the county. And so obviously in the midst of teaching is going well, COVID hit and all hell broke loose. And I didn't know which way was up and which way was down. And I'm pretty tech savvy, but trying to teach a child with special needs through the computer is one of the most challenging, sad things ever. You feel like you're failing the child, and the child feels like they're failing themselves. And I just tried so hard every day to give my kids their flowers because it's just hard. It's really difficult. And more so, the parents didn't know how to take it.
Yeah.
So the parents started being nasty, and I'm not that type of person. It's really, I'm still working on it. It's really hard for me to be professional when my parents aren't being professional. And so when COVID hit and school shut down in March of 2020, I found myself getting crazy with some of my parents in April and May because I was like, whoa, wait a minute. We're all in the same boat together. I have no kids, so I get why you're stressed at home with your kids. I get it. I was still living with my parents. I was going stir crazy with my parents. But watch your tone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was happening more and more. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to teach anymore. Like, that was what was transitioning in my head. But then I went into the school year and I didn't go into the school year the way I wanted to. Unfortunately, the county that I was working in decided to do hybrid learning. So we were going to school and teaching in person, and we had to do virtual teaching as well. So in one day, I could be on the computer with 7 students for an hour and then have to go to somebody's classroom in the midst of being a SPED teacher. So it was hard. And I was stressed and weighed down.
You mentioned earlier when you were teaching, you did inclusion as opposed to self-contained. Could you define those differences?
So inclusion, a special education inclusion classroom involves, let's say there's a class of 20 kids. Maybe 5 of those students receive special education services. You can't tell though. You really can't tell. And so what you may notice the difference in that classroom is there are 2 teachers. There's a general ed teacher and there's a SPED teacher. Co-teachers. I remember when I first started teaching, I was looked at more as a helper, and I was like, or an aide, and I was like, no, I'm not that. I had inclusion is new. I don't even think I can't even recall if inclusion was really going on when we were in school, because we always defined it as the self-contained room in the high school was right. It was like connected to the guidance counselor's office.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always saw those kids. We never knew in our class who had sped services or not.
Right.
We all assumed that we were all the same.
Right.
So now what you're seeing is we're all the same, but there are two teachers in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids love it. Sometimes the kids hate it. Sometimes the kids, I know I've had classrooms where the kids did not like to see me because I was the mean, stern teacher. I've had some kids where they would gawk over the fact, like, oh, Miss Fletcher's here. Yes. I will say, when I was in Petersburg, co-teaching was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Only because, and that was one of the reasons I left Petersburg, the behaviors were insane. And so a lot of those gen ed teachers thought the kid is acting bad, they're sped to begin with, push them out of the class, you need to go to Miss Fletcher's room. That's not what inclusion is.
Right.
And so I went to Prince George and I got the best example and experience of what a collaborative classroom is, and it was awesome. Me and my co-teachers, I do miss them because it was the best. It was the best. A nice set out schedule. We would text each other about what our plans would be for the day. Who wanted to teach what. We would collaborate even during our meetings. And say if I wasn't in my first grade class for reading, when I came in for math in the afternoon, I would say, sit down, take a break. I got it. It was the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so that co-teaching experience, that 2 versus 20, it's so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say, and the students are inclusion students, because they are high enough to be in that classroom,
Right.
and still gain those supports with 2 teachers being in the room.
Right. Right.
Now, a self-contained classroom, those children are low functioning, whether it is in intellect or mobility,
Mm-hmm.
or speech. I have one of my favorite memories about me teaching in Petersburg was that under crazy circumstances, our principal made we had 2 self-contained classrooms. We had a high functioning self-contained and we had a low functioning self-contained. Because we got a huge number of kids, my 3rd year teaching, we had a big number of kids. They took one of our teachers' rooms and they made all of us be in the same room together. We thought we were going to hate it. We loved it. It was awesome. So you're talking about low functioning kids and inclusion kids, because if I did a small group, my inclusion kids would come into my room with me.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about low functioning kids and inclusion kids being in the same room together, and all of these ideas and teaching and skills going on. Like, we were all learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I say low functioning, take for instance, one of the children who was in the room, I used to help out with her a lot, even though she wasn't my student. And her mom hated her teacher, who was my coworker. And I remember one day, mom was from Brooklyn, and it was the funniest thing. She was like, Miss Fletcher, can you be my daughter teacher? And I was like, and I was like, no, Mom, I'm so sorry. They're not in my area of what my duty is, like the type of kids to teach. I said, but I told her, I was like, if I could go back to school and focus on just taking classes and getting experience to work with low functioning kids, I would, because I just feel like it would be the most rewarding feeling. But when I speak of low functioning, higher low functioning kids, their IQs are a little lower.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like 60 or below. I know 50 is IQ of 50 is really significant. And also the child I was talking about, mom was from Brooklyn. That child was in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't see. She was blind. She was visually impaired, and she couldn't talk. She had receptive and expressive language difficulties. She did a lot of moaning and groaning and things like that. But
Nonverbal.
the nonverbal, the longer she was with us, the more we got to learn her.
Mhm.
Um, so children like that child in particular, their intellect or their abilities are too low to be in an inclusion room.
Mhm.
So that's how they get um, deemed to be in a self-contained room, because they need more teachers and instructors and services in order to increase their intellect and their abilities.
Right, right.
She is teaching. She works for Richmond City Public Schools. She is a high school history teacher.
Mhm.
She has been virtual since the school year started. And I used to think her job was easier than mine because I had to go to work. She didn't.
Mhm.
She said it's just as difficult because those students are in high school. A lot of high school kids work. A lot of high school kids might not even want to do the work. A lot of high school kids don't log on. A lot of high school kids' parents are not at home. They're at work, so they're left up to their own devices. It it's rough everywhere.
Um, and going back to how you said a lot of parents aren't, answering the phones and things like that. A student that I worked with, his mom came in and was like, yeah, you know, Johnny, he's not doing too well. As of late, he's been failing all of his classes. But whatever. It's just this whole pandemic is crazy. Yeah, but school, this is still real. Like this isn't like
Yeah,
an
this is
exhibition.
still
This
real
is
life.
still
And that's what I had to remind myself. Like, the world has not shut down yet. We have not burned to a crisp. We've got to still keep going.
right, right.
The kids have to keep learning.
Right.
And I'm running into the same thing you are. A lot of parents are using the excuse of, well, virtual is too hard. Yeah, baby, I know. I'm the one teaching them.
I know. And your kid is the one not listening. Like I know.
Right.
I know that it's hard. Exactly.
I love the fact that I can learn from my teachers and vice versa.
Right.
And so far, they are my favorite aspect.
Well, this has been very enriching and enlightening.
Awesome. I'm glad I could enrich and enlighten you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll definitely, if I have any more, questions or if anything else pops up, I'll definitely,
Oh, sweet. Please do.
yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm back again with Mr. Cortez Dixon, special education teacher. Mr. Dixon, let us know who you are and where you've been and what you do.
My name is Cortez Dixon. I'm a special education teacher in a public city school. I graduated from Illinois with a degree in bachelor's degree in communication. I've been teaching for about 3 years. This is my first year teaching special education. My first 2 years, I taught 4th and 5th grade. And now I do special education for 5th grade.
Okay. Now, are you fully licensed or are you provisional? You have a
I currently have a provisional license.
legislative audit and review committee, excuse me. They work with state government operations to make them more efficient and basically audit them to see, how efficient their processes are. JLARC is what they're called. Now, JLARC, they said that the Virginia Department of Education has identified special education as one of the top 3 critical shortage areas. Do you feel like that you're equipped to do your job with just having a provisional license?
Yes, I do feel equipped to do my job with just a provisional license. It is a bit much and it was a bit overwhelming, I say, going into special education during the pandemic specifically, because it's not as hands-on. And you kind of had to like figure out or ask questions or inquire about things yourself rather than just basically sitting through it, training, for example, because it's hard to sit through a virtual training and then just comprehend everything and be able to go apply it. Especially when you're a person who learns more hands-on.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I dealt with myself over the past 2 semesters. I know that I'm more of an auditory and tactile learner, so taking a lot of my courses, they were asynchronous, and it wasn't for me, so I can only now J-Lark, we were just talking about, they said that the quality of individualized education programs, or IEPs, for students with disabilities varies across Virginia schools. They said that some of the IEPs don't contain, like they lack the students' academic and functional needs. Do you find that it's harder for you to, I guess, diagnose those things, or to, really get a real feel for what the students' functional and academic needs are, doing it virtually as opposed to doing it in person?
Yes and no. Well, it was a little difficult receiving a lot of IEPs from transfer students coming in, and the goals would be very vague, and not really specific to the student, more so just something aligned out of the curriculum, out of the Virginia curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's definitely a different quality or a different level of detail that goes in the IEPs across the board, as far as different schools. As far as when they come from different schools, like I've received some from all over the place, from Texas to New York to Chester, learn that may not be necessary for them, not necessarily that they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
My district, it just might be something that we actually come to find out once we get to know them is not actually something that they need, and might have just been something over the top that they can phase out of, or do well without, thrive without. So I wouldn't, but I do. I mean, I believe there hasn't specifically been anything that we couldn't accommodate.
Now, do you think that's a case of misdiagnosis or mismanagement of the case?
Yes, it's more so, I think, the case of misdiagnosis.
Okay. I definitely appreciate those like you who are in the building teaching, and especially necessarily if you didn't necessarily want to be in the building teaching. So yeah, we definitely appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, that's all I got. You got anything else for me?
No, that's it. Appreciate
no
you.
Shout outs? No students? No.
Shout out to students.
All right, man. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Take it easy.